Alright, so we are going to be starting a new playlist called Boarding Games, where you play all these games without playing on a video game right here. Like those boarding games, like card games, board games, more. So the first one that is going in here is Uno. And I will be putting the following players in the game. I'll sort out the cards right here. Each player gets about 5 cards. The skip sign is when a player skips another player. The reverse sign means that the player reverses and it goes back to the player. There will be 4 players in each game. You guys will decide who will win. Wild card is when a player picks a color. The draw 2 card makes a player draws a card and they lose a turn. A wild card draw 4 is when a player chooses a color and draws 4 cards. If a player draws a card but it's the same color, they land the card right on it. If a player does not have a color that is in the color, they draw a card. If they have a card that is not the color in it, but it is the same number as it, they land it on and the color changes. So right now I have Uno cards right here. This will be my deck. I will pretend that there's 4 players, just the only one I'm playing is me. If the cards run out, the cards reshuffle and the other player draws some cards. I'll be right back. I'll give the players some cards and then we can start the game. In this game, there will be about 4 rounds. The cards are all set. So, player 1 will be going first. I will be the announcer of the game. So, it's player 1's turn. Player 2. Player 3. Player 4. Skip player 1. Player 3. Player 3 chooses red. Player 4. Player 1. Player 2. Player 2 chooses blue. Player 4. Player 4 chooses green. Player 1 draws 4 cards. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. Player 4. Reverse back to player 3. Player 3 draws a card. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 1. Skip player 4. Player 3. Skip player 2. It is yellow now. Player 1 chooses green. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 1. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 1. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. It is an 8. Yeah, it is an 8. It is blue now. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. It is a blue. Player 2. Player 1. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. It's a blue. Player 3 draws 2 cards. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 1. Player 1 chooses green. Uno. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. It is a wild card. Player 4 chooses red. Player 3 draws 4 cards. Yeah, player 3 draws 4 cards. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Nope, it does not draw a card. The color that player 4 chose is red. Skip player 1, player 4. Player 3. Player 2 draws 4 cards. 2 cards. Player 1 draws a card. Player 4. Player 3. Player 2. Player 1. It is a green now. Uno. Player 4 draws a card. It is a green. Player 3. Player 2 draws 2 cards. Player 1 draws a card. It is a green. Uno. Player 4. Nope. Yeah. Player 4. It is red now. Player 3. Player 2. Player 1 draws a card and loses the Uno. Player 4. Player 4 chooses yellow. Player 3. Player 2. Player 1. Reverse back to player 2. Player 3. Player 4. Uno. Player 1 draws a card. Player 2. Player 2 chooses red. Player 3. Player 3 chooses green. Player 4 draws 4 cards. Player 1. Player 1 draws a card. It is green. Player 2. It is red now. Yeah. Uno for player 3. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card and loses the Uno. Player 4. Skip player 1. Player 2. Player 3. Reverse back to player 2. Uno. Uno. Player 2. Player 1. Uno. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3 draws a card. Player 2 wins the game. Round 2 of Uno. Player 1 goes first. Player 2 draws 2 cards. Player 3. Player 4. It is red now. Player 1. Player 1 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 1 chooses yellow. Player 2. Skip player 3. Player 4. Player 4 chooses blue. Player 1. Skip player 2. Player 3. Player 4. Player 1. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 chooses green. Player 4. Player 4 chooses red. Uno. Player 1 draws 4 cards. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3 draws a card. Player 4. Player 4 wins the game. We are now in round 3 of Uno. Player 1 gets all the greens. Player 1 goes first. It's green now. Player 2. Player 3. Player 4. Player 1. Skip player 2. Player 3. Skip player 4. It is yellow. Player 1. Player 1 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 1 chooses green. Player 2. Skip player 3. Player 4. Reverse back to player 3. Player 3 draws a card. Player 2. Player 1. Player 4. Player 3 draws 2 cards. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 1. Uno. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3. It is blue now. Player 2. Player 1 draws a card. It's blue. Uno. Player 4. Player 3. Skip player 2. Player 1. Player 1 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 1 chooses green. Player 4 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 4 chooses blue. Player 3 draws 4 cards. Player 2. Uno. Player 1 draws a card and loses the Uno. Player 4. Uno. Player 3. Player 2 draws 2 cards. And player 2 loses the Uno. Player 1 draws a card. Player 4. Player 4 once again wins the game. So the results of the game, player 2 has 1 win and player 4 has 2 wins. Now for the final round of Uno. Will player 4 get win? If player 2 gets another win, we'll do the bonus round. Looks like most cards from player 1 are green. Player 1 goes first. Player 1 draws a card. It is blue. Player 2. Player 2 chooses green. Player 3. Player 4 draws 2 cards. Player 1. Player 2. Skip player 3. Player 4. Skip player 1. It is blue now. Player 2. Skip player 3. It is green now. Player 4. Player 4 chooses blue. Player 1 draws a card. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3. Player 4. Player 1 draws a card. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. It's a red with 4. It is red now. Player 4 draws a card. Player 1. Player 2. Player 3 draws 2 cards. Player 4. Player 1 draws 2 cards. It is blue now. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. Player 4. Player 1. Player 1 chooses green. Player 2 draws 4 cards. Player 3. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. It's green. Player 1 draws 2 cards. Player 2. Reverse back to player 1. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3. Player 2. Player 1. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3. Player 2. Player 1. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 4 chooses red. Player 3, skip player 2, player 1, player 4. Player 3. Yeah, player 3. Player 3 draws a card. It is a 4. It is yellow now. Player 2, skip player 1, player 4. Player 3, skip player 2, Uno. Player 1 chooses green. Player 4 draws a card. Nope. Player 3 draws a card. Player 2 chooses red. Player 1. Player 4. Player 3 draws a card. It is a 5. It's yellow now. Player 2. It is red now. Player 1 draws a card. Player 4. Player 4 draws a card. Player 3 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 3 chooses yellow. Player 4 draws a card. It's a wild card. Player 2 chooses red. Player 1 draws 4 cards. Player 4 draws a card. It's red. Reverse back to player 1. Skip player 2. Player 3. Player 3 draws a card. It's red. Player 4 draws a card. It's red. Player 1. Player 2. Uno. Player 3. Uno. It's yellow now. Player 4. Player 1. Player 2. Player 2 draws a card. Player 3. Player 3 wins this round. Player 4 wins. Now that's going to do me with the Uno game. 4 rounds right here with 4 players. This is my dad's account, also known as David Perry. Thank you for watching. I hope you like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you again in the next video.